Hello everyone. Here today we'll talk about virtues in particular. We will see what kind of actions are virtues, and what they are based on. Let's start. Let's start by talking about virtues connected with faith. This is belief, which can be blind or have reason. This is a common misconception, that faith must be blind and that everything a person believes is completely up to his interpretation. This is obviously false. It is clear that it's not necessary for someone to ignore evidence in order to be a virtuous believer. This misconception is often used by those who believe, because they don't want to struggle too much to find reasons for their belief. And it's also used by non-believers, in order to picture believers as stupid people who ignore evidence. Belief concerns basically everything that we have said before in this series, as well as everything we will say from now on. Faith is therefore the inherent belief of whatever happens to be logically consistent and backed up by evidence. Evolution, the Big Bang, and everything scientifically plausible and logical must be believed, and believing them is an act of faith, as well as existence, the triunity of existence, and anything this series has talked about. That's the reason why I created this channel in the first place, because faith is based on belief, which is based on knowledge. If I spread knowledge, as should you will spread belief, and thereby faith. From faith comes hope, because from knowledge of truth, and knowledge of good, comes the state of knowing how to reach it, knowing what enteleki is, and being able to reach it. If you know this, you will feel hope, which is an internalized belief that everything is going to be alright. The object of hope is eternal beatitude, that is enteleki. In the worst moments possible, when you are at your lowest, and everything seems to be collapsing, the virtue of hope makes you know that everything is going to be alright. Because anyway you're going to be fine, you're going to reach enteleki, sooner or later. That's why hope is a virtue. Virtues concern goodness, and eternal beatitude is the state of being in that good. Ignorance often leads people to think that there is no escape to danger and evil things or situations. But extended knowledge of reality, life, the world, and nature disprove this idea, giving off the beauty and joy that existence produces. Love is the last virtue of this first chain, and it is produced by hope. The reason is found in the differentiation between the imperfect love of hope and the perfect love itself. The imperfect love is love of something for the sake of possessing it, while the perfect love is love of something in its essence. Hope, therefore, concerns imperfect love, because it's all about wanting beatitude for the sake of being eternally happy. Love, however, is perfect, because it is not the will of a good for the sake of having it, but it is the will of a good for the sake of that good. Where hope wants goodness to be in it, love wants goodness even if that means not reaching it. That's why love is the form of all other virtues. It wills goodness for the sake of goodness, and has no ulterior motives. Love is the greatest virtue of all, and one who possesses the virtue of love is clearly recognizable. Joy, peace, mercy, charity, helping others, these are all acts and signs of a person who has love. Yes, including fraternal correction. What I mean by that is that love isn't merely accepting the vices of others, but trying to correct them. Many people nowadays think that telling people what to do, how to behave, and what to think, is some kind of tyrannical extremism. And they would be right, but if the preached things are good, people ought to impose them. Next, prudence. Prudence encompasses all sorts of other virtues, such as memory, reason, foresight, intellect, wisdom, visualization, common sense. Basically, any kind of ability that can make you avoid dangers is part of prudence. Prudence can manifest itself through careful consideration of one's actions. For example, an excellent management of one's money requires the virtue of prudence. Or politicians hesitating to make certain diplomatic or military moves in order to avoid future hindrances. Prudence is the most practical of these 7 virtues, and therefore successful people are often masters of this virtue. Now we have justice. This virtue includes fairness, the ability to give each what they deserve, rightfully punishing someone, the ability to keep promises, devotion, compassion, truthfulness, cordiality. Merely being a nice person. Justice is the moral obligation that directly derives from Newton's third law of dynamics. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction, and so must we do. We must react to stimuli in the same proportion as we perceive them, not exaggerating, and not going too light. Just people are people who will gain your trust, and are the most fair and impartial people out there. The next virtue is fortitude, which concerns courage and the ability to face adversions. It is composed of magnanimity, which makes people strive for great things, magnificence, which makes people spend time and energy to achieve great things, patience, which makes people endure adversities and bear pain, and perseverance, which makes people keep motivation and be ready to reach their goals. Fortitude is incredibly useful, alongside prudence, to gain respect and be successful. In fact, it is the main virtue of Stoicism. Stoic people are rich in fortitude, because they can endure the greatest kinds of pain, they can arrive at doing the greatest kinds of actions, just to reach a certain goal. Finally, we arrive at temperance. Also called moderation, it concerns the concupiscible and irascible powers. Virtues of temperance include modesty, shame, abstinence, chastity, honesty, moderation, parsimony, humility, zeal, sobriety, and continence. You can see people use temperance sometimes. They are people who never exceed, people who never go over what is necessary. Temperance, in fact, is all about staying within what is necessary, not wasting energy or things just because your concupiscible power wants you to. Temperance makes people able to recognize what is truly necessary, and do it, while avoiding doing something that isn't necessary just because you feel the need of doing it. That need is, in fact, false. These were the detailed virtues that we can identify inside of the 7 groups we have talked about. As you can see, we see every good action and habit we could think of falls within one of these 7 categories. They therefore are the best way to know what to do to have the best life possible. A virtuous life is a life in which these virtues, which are habits, are actualized as much as possible. While the opposite, the worst life possible, is a life lived through vices. And we now have to categorize them as well. We'll do it in the next episode. Until then, be well.